Why, hello! We are Group 1, and we are going to discuss the state of stem cell clinical trials. And our disease of choice was osteoarthritis, and its pathology is actually fairly simple. Your joints, the bending, your leg or your thumb or your finger or anything that has a bend in it, the thing in between is called your joint. And so your joint is connected via ligaments. And so ligaments connect your bones to your bones, and the joint has a lining in between it called synovium. And so synovium is that thing that degenerates over time, causing osteoarthritis. So without synovium, you get grinding, and grinding bone to bone causes a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort. And that synovium has to be replaced, or you have to completely get an entirely new joint, and that can cost a lot of money. So preventing osteoarthritis or developing new synovium would often be the best way of doing that. And so osteoarthritis is associated with constant joint usage and old age, and it can even be genetically inherited.
The way we found the number of legitimate clinical trials was to specifically search for osteoarthritis studies with a focus in stem cells that were in the United States. We wanted to specifically look for recruiting and completed studies. And of that search, we only found 16 studies. And of those 16 studies, 6 of them were legitimate. Here we have the criteria we use to evaluate the clinical studies. First, we check the studies were randomized. This means that the participants are chosen at random to receive the clinical intervention. Next, we check that the study had more than 50 participants. Then we check the primary purpose of the study, as there were a few that were categorized as basic science. One of the criteria that was harder to research was whether the study had FDA approval, mainly because some studies didn't require approval, while others claimed they have it when they didn't. We also researched the reputation of the institution that was conducting the study to see if they were trustworthy. Finally, we looked for any monetary costs involved, as valid clinical trials shouldn't have any.
Out of the 16 clinical trials we found for arthritis, only 6 of them were decided to be legitimate by our group. Big names such as Stanford, Mayo Clinic, and Emory University are considered to be very reputable and reliable sources for such medical work. Reputation was part of our criteria, so it only makes sense that we would trust these trials. Other legitimate sources are the Andrews Research and Education Foundation, Hunter Holmes McGuire Veteran Affairs Medical Center, and the Foundation for Sports Medicine and Arthritis Research. All of these studies were combed through by our group and considered to be legitimate because of certain standards that were met in a variety of unique ways.
Out of all of the clinical trials, one of the most legitimate ones were by Jason L. Jagu at Stanford University. Currently, the trial is in Phase 1 and still recruiting. It is an interventional type of clinical study with 99 randomized participants. The purpose of the study is to compare clinical and function outcomes of patients with mild to moderate osteoarthritis between a group that had a partial fat pad harvest with adipose-derived stem cell transplantation and another group that had a standard arthroscopic treatment without cell transplantation. Since the study is still in progress, no results have been published, but the study intends to determine whether adipose-derived stem cell transplantation will result in improved clinical outcomes at a 1 and 2 year follow-up compared to standard arthroscopic treatment. The estimated completion date is July of 2020.
The second study we chose was from Emory University. The study, comparing mesenchymal stem cell counts in unilateral versus bilateral posterior superior iliac spine bone marrow aspiration, was done by Kenneth Mountner. The study found through the NIH database is a Phase 1 trial still in the recruiting stages. There are 30 randomized spots in this trial, and the study is expected to conclude in December 2018. The treatment involves a bone marrow transplant being taken from either one or both hips. The adult mesenchymal stem cells are isolated from the bone marrow and induced to differentiate into osteoprogenitor cells, adipocytes, and chondrocytes. After this procedure, the cells are transferred into the knee affected by arthritis. Since this trial is not yet completed, no results have been published yet.